On a crisp January morning in 2002, Christopher Thompkins arrived at his surveying job in the wooded outskirts of Harris County, Georgia. The air was still the kind of quiet that amplifies every rustle of leaves or snap of a twig. Christopher, a 20-year-old with a reputation for being outgoing and hardworking, had no idea that this day would mark the beginning of an enduring mystery, one that would haunt his family and baffle investigators for years to come. Born on December 28, 1981, Christopher Carlton Thompkins was more than just a name on a missing persons report. He was a devout Christian, a loving son, and a friend to many. His Aunt Rosalind Mathis fondly recalled him as an outgoing good guy, someone who brought light into the lives of those around him. Christopher lived with his mother Ann Mackenzie in Ellerslie, Georgia, and worked for a surveying company, a job he enjoyed and took pride in. His days were spent navigating the rugged terrains of Georgia, mapping out land with precision and care. But on January 25, 2002, the land he knew so well would become the stage for his inexplicable disappearance. That morning, Christopher arrived at work at 8 a.m. as he always did. He rode with a coworker to their job site on County Line Road, a remote wooded area where the surveyors were tasked with charting the landscape. The team consisted of 4 men, including Christopher, who worked in a line formation, each spaced about 50 feet apart. This method allowed them to cover ground efficiently while maintaining visual contact with one another. Or so they thought. The day progressed normally. The men took a lunch break, exchanging casual conversation and perhaps a few laughs, unaware of the eerie turn the day would soon take. At approximately 1:30 p.m., they resumed their work. One of Christopher's co-workers was in the middle of a conversation with him when he briefly turned his head to check on something, a momentary distraction lasting only seconds. When he looked back, Christopher was gone. His tools lay on the ground where he had been standing, but Christopher himself had vanished without a trace. There was no sound of footsteps, no cry for help, nothing to indicate where he had gone or why. The coworker, bewildered, called out to the others. At first they assumed Christopher had simply stepped into the woods to relieve himself. But as minutes ticked by and he failed to return, concern grew. The 3 remaining surveyors began searching the immediate area, calling out Christopher's name, their voices echoing through the trees. They found nothing, no footprints, no broken branches, no signs of a struggle. It was as if the earth had swallowed him whole. One of the surveyors decided to call his wife to inform her that Christopher was missing, a peculiar choice considering Christopher's mother Ann was not notified until 4:15 p.m. that afternoon. By then, hours had passed and the window for finding any immediate clues was closing. As news of Christopher's disappearance spread, a full-scale search was launched. His family, including his mother Ann, joined the efforts, combing through the dense woods with a growing sense of dread. It wasn't long before they made a chilling discovery. One of Christopher's work boots was found hanging from the top of a barbed wire fence near where he was last seen. Alongside it, a blue thread, likely from his pants, clung to the wire. Some reports suggested that his pants were also found, but this detail remains unclear. Scattered on the ground nearby were coins believed to have fallen from his pocket. The sight was baffling. How had his boot ended up on the fence? And why were his belongings left behind in such a manner? The searchers were left with more questions than answers. Bloodhounds were brought in to track Christopher's scent, but even they were stumped. The dogs circled the area, but failed to pick up any trail leading away from the site. There was no blood, no torn clothing, no indication of an animal attack or a violent confrontation. It was as if Christopher had simply ceased to exist. The investigation into Christopher's disappearance quickly hit a wall. With no forensic evidence, no eyewitnesses, and no clear leads, the authorities were at a loss. The case grew cold, and in a move that baffled Christopher's family, the investigators eventually closed the file, concluding that he had walked off to start a new life. This explanation seemed absurd to those who knew him best. Christopher was close to his mother, content with his job, and had no known reason to abandon his life without a word. Adding to the mystery were the actions of his coworkers. One of them, upon learning of Christopher's disappearance, immediately retained a lawyer, a move that raised eyebrows but was never fully explained. Another coworker was later convicted of an unrelated violent crime and sentenced to a lengthy prison term, though there was no direct link to Christopher's case. The identities of these men and the name of the surveying company have never been released to the public, leaving a shroud of secrecy over the events of that day. Christopher's boss reportedly claimed that he had been acting strangely in the days leading up to his disappearance, but this assertion was vehemently denied by Ann Mackenzie. "Chris lived with me, and I saw him every day," she said. There was neither strange behavior on his part nor any distress. She firmly believed that her son was a victim of foul play and that his coworkers knew more than they had disclosed. Despite the lack of progress, the search for answers continued. 6 months after Christopher vanished, a farmer discovered his other work boot on private property less than a mile from the original site. This finding only deepened the mystery. How had the boot ended up there, and why was it separated from the first one found on the fence? Over the years, Christopher's case has been lumped into the category of missing 411 disappearances, a term coined by researcher David Paulides to describe mysterious vanishings in wilderness areas. This association has led to a slew of speculative theories ranging from alien abduction to Bigfoot encounters. However, such ideas, while intriguing to some, do little to provide concrete answers for Christopher's grieving family. Today, the case remains closed with no active investigation underway. In 2016, Christopher's loved ones held a vigil in his honor, a poignant reminder that his memory lives on even as the truth remains elusive. Ann Mackenzie, now an advocate for her son's case, has spoken out urging anyone with information to come forward. "I am not a citizen with great influence," she said. "I am simply a grieving mother who wants to keep this case in the public light in hopes that one day someone will come forward with some information about what happened to my son." The strange disappearance of Christopher Thompkins is a haunting tale, one that defies easy explanation. Was he the victim of a crime swiftly and silently carried out in the woods? Did he suffer an accident, his body somehow eluding searches? Or is there a more inexplicable force at play, something beyond our understanding? For now, the woods of Harris County hold their secrets close and Christopher's fate remains a mystery. But for those who loved him, the search for truth continues, driven by the hope that one day the silence will be broken and the question of what happened on that January day will finally be answered.